Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this lesson. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to simplify the complex fraction, which we've done in a previous course before. But just as a reminder, when we do this, essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to simplify the numerator and the denominator. And we're going to try to do that separately. First thing we do is we look at the numerator and we try to find here's my 3 over 1 minus 1/2. And I want to find a common denominator. Well, I have 1 and 2, so my common denominator is actually 2. So I take my 3 over 1, and I multiply by 2 over 2. My 1/2 just tags along for fun. So I get 6 over 2 minus 1/2, which is 5/2. Okay? Then I look at this denominator here. Okay, and I have my 5 over 6 minus 4 over 1. And again, my common denominator is going to be 6 because I just have 1 in the denominator. So I have 5 over 6 minus 4 over 1 times 6 over 6. So I get 5 over 6 minus 24 over 6, which is a negative 19 over 6. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this with my top and my bottom. So I have my numerator, which is 5/2, and then my denominator, which is negative 16 over 6, negative 19 over 6. And I take my denominator and I invert and multiply. So that's a negative 6 over 19. And then what I do is I can reduce. My 6 and my 2 can reduce to 3. So then I end up with negative 15 over 19. Okay. And that's how I simplify. The reason why we're doing this is because I'm going to simplify some trig functions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to simplify those fractions because I'll have like root 3 over 2 or 1/2. And so I'm going to have to simplify those fractions. Okay, so let's take a look at the second example. And what you notice is you see like cosine of 45 degrees, right? So we know 45 degrees, 45, 45, 90 triangle looks like 1, 1, root 2. And I know my 30, 60, 90 triangle is root 3, 1, and 2. Root 3 side is always on the same side, at the adjacent side as the 30-degree angle. So now I'm just going to plug in, but let's be careful here. I'm actually going to rewrite this because it's cosine squared here. When I have the cosine squared of 30, that's really the cosine of 30 squared. It's just written strangely. So that's what trig functions, they write them strange, when they have a quantity squared or, quantity cubed. They put that like right in the middle, and so it's a little strange. So I'm going to rewrite this first. So 2 minus 2, so we don't get confused, squared, over 2 plus the cosine of 45. Oops, I cannot write today. All over 1 minus the cosine of 60. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify by looking at my triangle and substituting in. So I have 2 minus 2. The cosine of 30 degrees is root 3 over 2. And I am squaring that, all divided by 2. And I guess I could have factored out a greatest common factor to start off with, but that's okay. We're plenty far in. So 1 over root 2, and then 1 minus the cosine of 60. The cosine of 60 is 1/2. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to look here. So I have 2 minus 2, root 3 over 2 squared. I square my numerator and square my denominator. So the square of the square root of 3 is just 3. And then I square my denominator. So 2 squared is 4. And then this is all over 2. Plus 1 over root 2. And then 1 minus 1/2 is just 1/2. So now I get 2 minus 6 over 4 all over 2 plus 1 over root 2. I'm going to take my denominator, invert, and multiply. So that is 2 over 1. I'm running out of room here. So I have 6 over 4 is the same thing as 3 over 2. So I have 2 minus 3/2 all over 2 plus 2 over root 2. So I find a common denominator in my numerator, which is 2. So 4 over 2 minus 3 over 2, all over 2, plus 2 over root 2. So 4 halves minus 3 halves gives me 1 half over 2. And that 2 is technically over 1. And then plus 2 over root 2. So I invert and multiply my first fraction. So 2 over 1 becomes 1 over 2. Plus, and I can rationalize my denominator. I mean, I could have done it earlier. 2 root 2 over 2. Got a lot of 2's floating around. Okay, so 1/4. And then plus, my 2's cancel out on the outside of the root. Remember, we don't cancel underneath the root because technically he's like in jail. So we have 1/4 plus root 2. And I'm going to be okay with you guys leaving it like that. I don't need you to write it as one fraction. In a future class, you might have to do that, but for right now, we don't need to worry about that. Okay, so now we got a lot of 45-degree angle measurements. So let's just draw our 45, 45, 90. And I would probably only draw my triangle once, but because I keep scrolling, I'm never going to find my triangle, or I'm going to make you guys all dizzy by scrolling back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to figure out whether or not this is true or false. I want the square root of secant of 45, and I'm squaring it, plus the cotangent of 45, and I'm squaring it, plus the tangent of 45, and I'm squaring it. And I want to know, is this equal to 4? Okay, so the secant of 45, secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. Pause for a second. Cotangent is going to be 1 of 45 degrees because the same thing as tangent. And then tangent of 45 again is going to be 1. And I want to know, is this equal to 4? So the square root of the squared gives me 2. So 2 plus 2, nope, just kidding. I wish it was 2. 2 plus 1 plus 1. Is this equal to 4? Is the square root of 4 equal to 4? No, 2 is not equal to 4, so this is false. Ooh, we have some simplifying to do, and they're all very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to draw a triangle because I know I'm probably going to need them. The more you draw them, the easier it is to memorize. Root 3, 1, and 2. So the adjacent side of the 30 degrees is always the root 3 side. Okay, so 420. I got to get rid of this. I got to make it smaller. I had to make it between 0 and 360 degrees. Otherwise, we can't use our reference angles. That's my alarm for first thing in the morning. Okay. And then 315, that's fine. And then 570 is 210. So this is the cosine of 60 degrees plus the tangent of 315 and then minus the sine of 210. So we can't forget what we've done in previous lessons, right? So in previous lessons, we found reference angles, and then we simplified just the regular. We did one at a time, right? Now I'm going to have to simplify it more where I have like a string of things that I need to go through and simplify. So you could take them one at a time if you wanted to, or you could write them all together. It's completely up to you. I would like to not write it with a highlighter. I would like to simplify them kind of where they are at. So remember, 315 degrees is in quadrant 4. So tangent is negative in quadrant 4. Its reference angle is 360 minus 315, which is 45. Okay, so when I write this, I have the cosine of 60 degrees, and then it's going to be minus the tangent of 45. Remember, we can rewrite these. And then I need a different color. So 210 is in quadrant 3. Sine is negative in quadrant 3. My reference angle is 210 minus 180, which is 30 degrees. So this would be a negative of a negative sine of 30 degrees. So that's how we reduce it to these triangles here. So the cosine of 60 degrees, cosine of 60 is 1/2. Tangent of 45 is 1. And then this is plus the sine of 30 degrees. Sine of 30 is 1/2. And so I get 0. A lot of work for just 0. Okay, and that is it for this lesson.